like your debit card, your credit card, and all these other documents and how everything works based off insurance coverage, all right? So I'm going to show you some things, and we're going to go through some things, and just pay close attention to, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're about to read over. It's going to be very clear and concise. As y'all know, every time I bring something, I always make sure that I bring you good information, resourceful information. So let's get into this. All right, so we're dealing with definitions, and it's linked to an amendment published in 87 FR 4470, right? And they give you the date and everything. So the act is the Federal Depository Insurance Act, and it talks about corporations, and it means a federal deposit insurance corporation. And then default has the same meaning as provided, and then they give you this section, right? So we're gonna go look at default because you want to know what default is, right? So I want to show you. So when we read, you can understand what's being said. So definitions relating to default. The term default means with respect to an insured depository institution, an adjudication or other official determination by any court of competent jurisdiction. So it has to be a competent court, federal court, the appropriate federal banking agency or other public authority pursuant to which a conservator, receiver, or other legal custodian is appointed for an insured depository institution, or in the case of a foreign bank having an insured branch for such branch. So basically it's talking about when an insured bank fails to do something that it's appointed to do for another insured institution in which it's holding something for that institution and it has an obligation. So it's talking about when the bank fails. So you get that. Let's go back. All right, so the deposit has the same meaning as provided. And so we're gonna go read what deposit is, because you got all these things we can't move forward until you understand what this stuff is, and then everything will start really making sense to you. You know, it all come together. So a deposit, the term deposit is an unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business and for which it has given or is obligated to give credit, either conditionally or unconditionally, to a commercial, checking, savings, time, or drift account, or which is evidenced by a certificate of deposit or a drift certificate, investment certificate, certificate of indebtedness, or other similar name, or a check or a draft drawn against a deposit account and certified by the bank or having associate or savings association, or a letter of credit or a traveler's check on which the bank or the savings association is primarily liable, provided that without limiting the generality of the term money or its equivalent, any such account or instrument must be regarded as evidencing the receipt of the equivalent of money when credited or issued in exchange for checks or drafts, or for a promissory note upon which the person obtaining such credit or instrument is primarily or secondarily liable, or for a charge against a deposit account, or in settlement of checks, drafts, or other instruments forwarded to such bank or savings association for collection. So it's talking about pretty much, you know, everything. You know how people been saying they've been sending stuff to the bank and the bank don't accept it, and the bank said they don't accept these transactions. Well, everything in the law says that they does accept these transactions, and they have to, but certain things you're doing maybe not be might not be right as far as how you're approaching certain things. But the key thing is that you understand that a deposit is an unpaid balance of money. It's a balance that it hasn't been paid yet. So any record evidence in a deposit is also proof of another payment of that deposit that has not been paid. So I just want you to understand, when you got evidence that you bought something or anything, you also got evidence of an amount that has not been paid. It's a double transaction. So deposit account record means account ledger, signature card, certificate of deposit, passbook, corporate resolution authorizing accounts in possession of an insured depository institution, and other books and records of an insured depository institution, including records maintained by the comptroller, which relate to an insured depository institution. Deposit keep taking functions, but does not mean the account statement. Deposit slip, items deposited or canceled checks. And then it says the FDIC insurance. Corporation means FDIC, independent activity, a corporation, partnership, unincorporated association shall be deemed to be engaged in independent activity if the entity is operated primarily for the purposes or purpose other than to increase a deposit insurance, right? In which we know that all our activities is for personal, family, and household use. All right, so an insured branch means a branch of a foreign bank. Any deposit in which are insured in accordance with the provisions of the Act. And an insured deposit has the same meaning as provided under 3M1 of the Act. And then it gives us the part. So we're going to go look at that, right? All right, so in any case of any deposit in a branch of a foreign bank, the term insured deposit means an insured deposit as defined in paragraph 1 of the subsection, which is payable in the United States to 1, an individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States. 2, a partnership, corporation, trust, or other legal cognizable entity created under the laws of the United States or any state and having its principal place of business within the United States or any state, or an individual, partnership, corporation, trust, or any legal cognizable entity which is determined by the board of directors in accordance with the regulations to have business or financial relationships in the United States as to make the insurance of such deposit consistent with the purpose of this chapter. So pretty much damn near everything we have for like every business you have, all those deposits, all those accounts are insured accounts up to a certain amount, depending on whether they're joint or single accounts. And your ownership, what determines the interest of the account is the ownership level. So if you're just a owner that's on record, but nobody has stepped forward and claimed, see, it's all about claiming ownership and being able to understand what you need to be claiming. All right, so they have a certain criteria that the board prescribes, right, by regulations as necessary or appropriate in judgment to carry out the purposes of this chapter. So it's certain things that you must do in order for, to be within accordance of what they require. And the only way you would know these things is not by taking guesses or saying, oh yeah, it's just because I read a book. It's by actually going in the laws and finding the stuff that basically solidifies everything that you're trying to do, something that's telling you directly that this is what you're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Instead of just guessing stuff all the time. We got too many people trying to guess stuff instead of actually have written laws where they can actually So, okay, well, according to, and this coming straight from the federal government, or you can go directly to any one of their websites and get the same information. All right, so uninsured deposit is the term uninsured deposit means an amount of money of any deposit of any depositor at any insured depository institution. See, the key thing is for us to not receive insurance or not truly understand what we supposed to, what that means when they say you got 0.1% coverage or insurance that they pay you, when in fact, according to federal law, they supposed to give you dollar for dollar, right? So you have to actually know where this information is at, right? To go in here to be able to hold them accountable. Preferred deposit, the term preferred deposit means deposits of any public unit at an insured institution which are secured or collateralized as required under state law. So that's what you have is preferred deposit, right? Because your stock is preferred stock. All right, transfer deposit. A transfer deposit means a deposit in a new bank or other insured depository institution made available to a depositor by a corporation as payment of an insured deposit of such depositor in a closed bank and assumed by such new bank or other insured depository institution. All right, so it's talking about transfer between two different types of bank, and it's talking about one bank being a closed bank and being able to receive the payment from a new bank, which is something I ain't never, really even tripped off that to just now that it said that. All right, domestic branch. The term domestic branch includes any branch, office, branch, agency, additional office, or any branch place of business located in any state of the United States or in any territory of the United States, Puerto Rico, Guam, Americans, Samoa, and trust territory of the Pacific Islands or the Virgin Islands at which deposits are received and checks are paid or money is lent. The term domestic branch does not include an automated teller machine or a remote service unit. The term foreign branch means any office or place of business located outside of the United States is territory. So like you are a foreign branch, you got to understand that, the consumer, where you're located, where you're doing your place of business is not within the District of Columbia, right? That's why if like somebody from the state or like a child protective services or anybody come on your property, if they don't have a court order, you can pretty much tell them to get the hell off your property. And that's for the simple fact you're not public. You see what I'm saying? You're private. You got to have a right to privacy. But we somehow forgot about our rights of privacy and we keep thinking we're public, but really we foreign to the state. You see what I'm saying? And most people got to keep that in mind. And anytime you're doing business and everything, it really affects the concepts and the way you should see things when you understand that you're foreign to the state. All right. A trust fund, the term trust fund means any fund held by an insured depository institution in a fiduciary capacity and includes without being limited to funds held as trustee, executor, administrator, guardian, or. All right, so this right here is let me see, because it's a lot of information and I don't want to actually go through it, but y'all gonna actually have to go in here and read all of this stuff on your own, because like I said, if I took all the time to actually go through everything and break it all down and go through it, then I would never even get to, the other stuff that I need to cover as far as dealing with the debits and credit cards. But you do have to understand insurance, right? Which is very, very vital, because most people will be like, well, how can I do this? How can I just do that if I ain't got no money? Like, how can I? And you don't understand promissory notes. You don't understand that you are issuing promissory notes and you have a right to be credited for the notes. I don't care who you issue a note to. If you know you issued a note, then you need to be claiming that they pay you for the note. How could anybody make you pay them on a note independent of them paying you for the note that you issue first? And it's like, it's like, duh, like, it's like, when we gonna wake up and realize, like, it's just really that simple for you to fix any situation that you're going through. And understanding that your bank account is an insured bank. Your account should be insured, meaning it should be already covered. If you're not able to use the account, if you do an EFT and they say insufficient funds, you got to be able to dispute that. You got to be able to step forward with the right knowledge and information to be able to validate that what they're doing is incorrect, and show them that, hey, this is where your error is, this is what you need to fix. Let me remind you of something, that on this date, what actually took place, so you can understand where you stand in between the agreement before you breach something that I'm entitled to. Then I have to take you to court. Now, we can just settle these things if I could just provide you with the correct information to show you where you made an incorrect thing, and maybe you can just fix that, because I know you really want to have a true good relationship with the principal, and I also want to have a good relationship with the bank. So it's imperative that both parties, like, you have to have the knowledge, the competency to know what you're doing. You can't just be saying, I want to try to make a payment. Like when you're dealing with your debit card, like, most people don't get what the debit cards are. The debit cards are electronic fund transfers device. That's what they front. Like, when you're reading the EFT Act, I tell a lot of people when they go into the Act, they don't never really get into the Act like they should, because it talks about the debit card. And I'm gonna take you in there and show you some things where they show you in the EFT about that debit card, right? Now, let me get down here, right? So I want to show you a couple of more things before I leave this, right? So we already know what an insured depository institution is. So now y'all gotta really hold these institutions accountable. Y'all think about it. They insured, yo. Your account is insured. So you got to hold these people accountable, but you got to have the right knowledge. You can't just walk in the front door and be trying to talk to anybody behind the counter. No, you got to be able to have enough knowledge to say, you know what, I need to send this to a director, a board, somebody on the board. I need to hold some man or some woman that got some kind of power for this corporation accountable. And then I need to make sure that my procedures as far as my enforcement is correct, because most banks have a registered agent. You got to make sure you serving the right person. We serving the CFO and the CEO at the main location, but that ain't where they require for you to serve process. They say they have a whole nother institution that receives their mail when it comes to legal process, but we serving the main. So then when you don't get no response, or they don't respond, you be sitting up there looking like, man, it ain't, because we didn't follow the proper procedures. We didn't know all the correct formalities in which we were supposed to follow or check first before we actually start trying to serve somebody. So before you even start serving, you got to know all the rules and the regulations as to who needs to be served. When well, wait a minute, but let me make sure that he doesn't have an agent before I actually serve him. You see what I'm saying? Like, these are things that must be known, must be done in the act of you doing anything that you have to do. I don't care if it's a rescission, if it's a whatever it is. I don't care what it is. You have to really understand what you're doing. Now, I just wanted to throw that in there because that's something that really people need to really be mindful of. Now, interest is something that I really try to wake everybody up to, is interest. A lot of people was not teaching about interest and what interest was and how interest works. So I come in, I want everybody to understand what interest represents and why your interest is important, and your ability to act on your interest, right? Your interest, right? Your interest is your right to act on what's yours, your what's rightfully yours. That's my interest, man. This is my right to do what I'm doing, right? So interest with respects to a deposit means any payment to or for the account of any depositor as compensation for the use of funds constituting a deposit. A bank absorption of expenses incident to providing a normal banking function, or is forbearance from charging a fee in connection with such a service is not considered a payment of interest. So Man, what I'm showing you is priceless. Like it's pretty much telling you they supposed to be paying you for you using the bank account. Like, don't you want to get paid? Like, really though, don't you want them to pay you? It say right here that whenever they make you pay for a service or something, that's not considered interest. Interest is when you receive a benefit. So I don't care what it is. If it's any charge, it should be payable to me. I should always reap the benefit from the charge. If I have to pay the charge, that's not interest.